Get the fuck out of the handicap spot, old man! The phone camera caught every wrinkle on George's stunned face. The kid's voice, smug, nasal, high on adrenaline, cut through the parking lot like a bayonet. George stood motionless beside his rust-bitten Chevy Silverado, one hand gripping the cane, the other hovering near the dented door. He hadn't even turned off the engine yet. The boy circled him like a hyena. You fakers think you're owed everything just 'cause you wore a uniform. In Nam or whatever. That tag ain't a license to steal a damn parking spot. I fought in Korea, George muttered. It came out like gravel. Oh, wow. Korea, the kid mocked. Jesus, that was like, what, 100 years ago? You're still riding that trauma, Dick? The phone hovered inches from George's face. The red recording light blinked. Put that down, George said. Soft, measured. Make me, war hero. A small crowd had started to gather. Shoppers pushing carts paused at the edges. Some looked embarrassed. No one stepped in. The kid's phone panned to George's license plate, zoomed in on the disabled vet placard hanging from the rearview mirror. Classic. Fucking classic, the kid said. My grandpa served too. Never pulled this poor me bullshit. George exhaled slowly. His leg burned from the inside, the phantom fire he'd lived with for 6 decades flaring under the sun. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. Oh, I do, the kid grinned. I know a liar when I see one. Then came the final blow. Smile for TikTok, Grandpa. Click. Before we continue, comment below which city you're from. The video hit 3 million views in 24 hours. Hashtag Garsvaler Vulture comments, fake-ass vet. No limp, no cane, just using the system. Look at this dude. Probably never left Kansas. Boomers will lie about anything. Walmart never issued a statement. They didn't need to. Public opinion had already rendered judgment. 1 week later, George limped out of the pharmacy, gripping a paper bag of blood thinners. The heat was punishing. Texas sun like a sledgehammer on his shoulders. He never heard them coming. Just a blur, a grunt, a fist to the ribs. You don't deserve that tag, liar. He collapsed between 2 trucks. Someone kicked him. Another hand grabbed his cane and threw it. His hat fell off. His glasses shattered. Then they were gone. People screamed. Someone called 911, but nobody had seen their faces. George lay on the hot asphalt, blood pooling from his nose. A woman leaned over him, whispering, "Don't move, sir. Help's coming." She gasped. His pant leg had ridden up. Just enough. A flash of metal. Screws and carbon fiber. You shouldn't go out alone anymore, Dad, his son said. People are fucking crazy. George sat in silence. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and distant rot. His ribs were cracked, his lips split. But he didn't care about that. You seen? It? The video? His son nodded. That kid? He's famous now, even got sponsors. George snorted. For what? Bullying a cripple? He's calling it a movement. Says he's exposing entitled vets who scam the system. George stared out the window. Sunlight caught the IV drip like mercury. He ever serve? No. Then he doesn't. Know a damn thing. 3 nights later, George stood in his garage, bathed in the glow of a single hanging bulb. The walls were lined with dusty tools, unopened paint cans, and a pegboard holding a pristine American flag folded in a triangle. On the workbench, a metal box, rusted shut. He pried it open. Inside, his dog tags, a patch that once said infantry, a photo of his unit. 9 young men. Only 2 had made it home. He took out another photo, black and white, faded. Him, shirtless, in a field hospital, his thigh bandaged in layers of gauze. No leg beneath it. Next to the photo, a blood-stained field knife. George held it. The weight was familiar, heavy, permanent. He walked into Walmart the next morning at 6:02 a.m., just as the doors opened. The air conditioning hit him like a wave. He parked in the furthest spot in the lot, walked every painful step, waited by the self-checkout until the kid showed. Same smirk, same phone, already live. Well, well, the kid said. Back again, huh? Didn't learn the first time? George didn't. Flinch. You want the truth? The kid chuckled. I want the views, old man. What you got? George lifted his pant leg. The camera caught the gleam of titanium, the rubber foot, the lattice of straps. The kid went quiet. You think I got this on eBay? George asked. Look, man, maybe you want the real story? You want to go viral? Come with me. The video went up that night. Title, He Cut Off His Own Leg. Here's why. Within a day, it passed 12 million views, but the comments had changed. Respect. Didn't know the whole story. God damn, this shook me. We owe him more than likes. George sat alone in his garage, laptop closed, light off. He didn't watch the views climb. He didn't care. Because none of them knew the real truth. He hadn't lost the leg in battle. He'd cut it off because he ran. He abandoned his squad when the Chinese surrounded the ridge. Crawled through snow, screaming, blacking out. And when the cold wouldn't kill him fast enough, he'd taken that same knife and hacked through flesh and tendon until freedom cost him everything. His medal was a lie. The army never found out. And now? Now he was famous for a lie about a lie. George took the flag off the pegboard, set it on fire in a rusted barrel. The flames licked the past clean. In the silence that followed, he whispered, They only see what they want to see. Then he closed the garage and locked it. History. The snow had come early that year, December 1952, somewhere near Heartbreak Ridge. The screams had stopped hours ago. That was the worst part. Not the blood, not the stink of rot or gunpowder, but the silence. George, Private First Class George M. Kendall, was the last man alive in his platoon. His fingers were frostbitten. His M1 carbine was frozen to his gloves. His left foot, no, his whole leg, was purple from the knee down, and his radio was dead. He lay beneath a tarp, buried in snow and blood and the gut-slick warmth of another man's corpse. Jenkins. Or maybe Sanderson. It didn't matter anymore. They're not coming, he thought. Not today, maybe not ever. A crack echoed in the distance, not close but not far. Chinese rifles. They were combing the ridge. He had one grenade left. One round in the chamber, one leg that wouldn't move. He could wait, die, be tortured, or he could make a choice. He looked at the field knife. Black handle. 5 inches of steel. Still clean. You cut timber with this. You skin deer. You don't... He took off his belt, wrapped it tight above the knee, bit down on the sleeve of his uniform, and began. The first slice wasn't the worst. The third was. Tendons snapped like rubber bands. Bone took longer. He didn't finish, passed out halfway through. When he woke, it was morning, and he was alone, but free. You ever tell anyone? The boy asked. George blinked. The garage smelled of oil and sawdust. The kid, Lucas, stood near the workbench, pale, sweating. You recording this? No, Lucas said. Not this part. George lit a cigarette with shaking hands, then shut the hell up. He looked at the knife, still stained, still sharp. You wanted the truth. Now you've got it. Lucas swallowed. They'll tear you apart again. If they find out, let 'em. You want me to edit it out? George didn't answer. He stared at the knife and remembered the snow. Lucas showed up at the door at noon, nervous, shaved clean, hair slicked back, holding 2 coffees like a peace offering. George didn't speak at first. Just let the door hang open, squinting against the daylight. Thought you might want... George took the coffee, slammed the door. But 20 seconds later, he opened it again. You gonna stand there or what? Lucas shuffled. Inside, the garage reeked of last night's smoke, Ash clung to the workbench. I cut the ending, Lucas said. Didn't feel right including it. The knife story? Lucas nodded. Didn't seem fair to milk it. George gave a humorless chuckle. You figuring out what shame tastes like now? Lucas looked down. Maybe. They sat in silence for a while. George sipped. Black coffee, too bitter. Just right. Why'd you even film that first video? George asked. I wanted views, that's all. Drama, outrage, it's what sells. And now? Lucas hesitated. Now I feel like I stepped on a landmine and didn't know it. You didn't step on it, George muttered. You danced on it. Later that afternoon they drove. Lucas behind the wheel, George silent in the passenger seat, staring out at the passing strip malls and pawn shops. Where we going? Lucas finally asked. VFW Hall. You still go there? Not in years. They pulled, up to a squat brick building. American flags faded by sun and rain. One door crooked on its hinges. Inside, old photos, dust, chairs lined up like tombstones. A handful of veterans watching an old western on mute. An old man looked up. George, son of a bitch, I thought you were dead. George smirked. Not yet. They hugged like men who don't cry in front of others. What brings you back, buddy? George nodded at Lucas. This one wants to know what it means to lie. The man laughed. Then pull up a chair, boy. You're about to get a damn education. 2 hours later, Lucas sat stunned. Stories of overdoses, divorce, suicide. One man confessed to shooting a boy with a toy rifle. Another talked about burning entire villages. And you think you're the only one with blood on your hands? George asked him later outside, under the humming streetlight. No, I never thought. Exactly, you never thought. Lucas leaned against the truck. Why'd you take me here? George lit a cigarette. Because you looked like a kid who needed to grow the hell up. Lucas was quiet. Then, what now? George stared at the moon. Now you decide what kind of man you want to be. And Lucas, for once, didn't answer. Lucas stared at the glowing screen of his laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The cursor blinked. A blank caption field waited. George's video was still climbing. 17 million. CNN had reached out. So had Vice. A podcast even offered George a spot. Warrior Truths or something like that. But George refused them all. They want a mascot, he'd said. Not a man. Lucas didn't argue. That afternoon, Lucas met George in his living room. The light through the blinds painted stripes across the worn carpet. The air smelled of motor oil and old tobacco. You sure about this? Lucas asked. George nodded. Cut it all. No interviews, no sponsors, no merchandise. You could raise money. For real vets. For guys like you. George's eyes were flat. No. Lucas opened his mouth to argue, but George raised a finger. Let me ask you something. Why are you still here? Lucas blinked. What? Why are you still coming around? You got what you wanted, your views, your redemption arc. Lucas shifted. I don't know. Maybe I just want to make it right. You can't. Then, why let me in? George didn't answer right away. Then, because I'm tired of hating, tired of hiding, and maybe, just maybe, you're worth the damn effort. That night, George sat on the porch with his son. The silence between them had once been a chasm. Now, it was something gentler, familiar. I saw the comments, his son said. Some people still think you faked it. George shrugged. Let 'em. You never told me. About the knife. I never told anyone. His son lit a cigarette. Passed it without a word. Why now? George took a drag, held the smoke, exhaled slowly. Because I wanted to see if truth still mattered. And? Still not sure. The next day, Lucas met with a local veterans group. He won't take a dime, Lucas explained. But maybe we can use the attention to help others. Mental health, housing, addiction, whatever we can. One man laughed. The old bastard's finally useful. Lucas didn't smile. You ever cut your own leg off to survive? Silence. They began drafting a proposal that afternoon. A community program in George's name. No ads, no politics, just help. Lucas told George over dinner. George stabbed a green bean with his fork. You doing this for me? No. George looked up. I'm doing it because I owe the ones I never saw. The ones I mocked. The ones I didn't understand. George gave a single nod. Then don't fuck it up. Later that week, George's house was egged. Yolk dripped down the siding. A window cracked. Spray paint in red. Liar. Lucas arrived to help clean. George waved him off. They can paint what they want. I got stronger scars. Lucas hesitated. Then, you ever regret it? George paused. Every day. But I'd regret surrender more. That night, George found an envelope in his mailbox. No return address. Inside, a photo. Black and white. His squad. All 9. Faces young. Frozen in time. On the back, in shaky pen. You lived. That was enough. He stared at it for a long time. Then he burned it too. Not out of shame, but because some ghosts don't belong on walls, they belong in the fire. The town hall meeting wasn't George's idea. Lucas had organized it. A veterans forum. Stories from the Forgotten, he called it. The library's basement buzzed with chairs and folding tables, lukewarm coffee in styrofoam cups, and veterans in faded hats that didn't quite fit their hairlines anymore. George stood in the back, arms crossed, watching. He didn't want to speak, didn't plan to. But Lucas, tenacious as guilt, gave him the look. That silent prod. So George stepped forward, cane tapping tile, room going still. He didn't take the mic, just stood there. Names. George Kendall. I served in Korea. I left a piece of myself in the snow and came back with the rest. Took me 60 years to admit what I did to survive. Silence. I lied. For decades. They gave me a medal I didn't earn and I let them. Hell, I smiled for pictures. Let school kids salute me. A cough. A shifting chair. I cut off my own leg in a foxhole. Not because I was brave. Because I was scared. I left my men. And I've lived longer than all of them. A voice rose from the crowd. Why say this now? George looked down, then back up. Because silence eats you alive slower than bullets. And because I finally met a kid who forced me to stop hiding. All eyes drifted to Lucas, who looked like he might be trying not to cry. Another veteran raised a hand. What's the lesson then, old man? George smiled just slightly. That the truth won't save you, but it might save someone else. Later that night, George sat on his porch again, Lucas beside him, no words for a while. Then Lucas asked, You think people change? George lit a cigarette. Not all at once, but pieces fall off, new ones grow in, like scar tissue. I think I'm changing. George looked at him. Yeah. You're getting annoying in new ways. Lucas laughed. You gonna tell me what happened that night? George raised an eyebrow. Which night? Lucas hesitated. The ridge, the knife. George exhaled, long and slow. Snow was everywhere. I could hear them, Chinese patrols closing in. My leg was frozen. Useless. I knew if they caught me it wouldn't be quick. Lucas nodded slowly. I wanted to live, but not like that. So I took the knife and I made a choice. Was there a moment, Lucas asked, right before, where you thought, I can't do this? George looked him dead in the eye. Every goddamn second. A week later, George got a call. Mr. Kendall, this is Major Torres from the Department of Veterans Affairs. We'd like to speak with you about your recent visibility and, well, your confession. George said nothing. We're not calling to punish. We're calling because People are listening. And there's power in that. Power I didn't ask for. All the more reason it matters. You could help shape new mental health programs, training, outreach, a legacy. George paused. I'll think about it. That's all we ask. That night, Lucas knocked on his door. Again. Jesus, George muttered. You ever sleep? Lucas grinned. We're building a site, vetstories.org. Personal accounts, anonymous or signed. We want your story to be the first. George shook his head. No one needs another confession. Lucas stepped closer. Not a confession. A map. For the next guy bleeding alone in the snow. George studied him. Saw something there. Conviction. Purpose. A spark George hadn't seen in a long time. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. A month passed. Lucas handed George a printed comment from the site. Typed, anonymous. I almost did it last night. The rope, the note. Then I found your video, and I'm still here. Thank you, old man. George read it twice. Then he folded it, put it in his wallet, right next to a picture of 9 boys in uniform. He whispered their names, and for the first time in years, he meant it. I didn't save you then, but maybe I can save someone now. Then he turned to Lucas. Let's get to work.